Welcome to ReReview, where we watch movies from our past with a perspective from today. Your hosts are Matt, Bobby, and Austin, and we love the films from our youth, so we're taking a look back to see if they still hold up. On this episode, we're discussing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Reboot. It was released in 2014, directed by Jonathan Liebesman, starring Megan Fox, Will Arnett, and William Fichtner. This is the fourth film in the franchise, a reboot, and full of CGI turtles. Now, this is a fair warning. We're spoiling a 9-year-old movie, so if you haven't seen it, we will be revealing key plot points. I think my first question for you both is, when is the right time for a reboot? You know, the last movie was in 1993. This is 2014. Is that a good gap to you? And I have a selfish reason for asking. I'll tell you in a moment.
I think it depends on what it is.
I think it depends on how it leaves off. So like
the original.
Well, like take for example Batman. I think if you
thinking of Batman.
Yeah, if you think of like Batman and Robin and then going to Batman Begins, I think if you leave off on a sour enough note, like if it was so bad, I think that within like a 5 to 6 year period, it's okay.
Ooh, I mean, 5 to 6.
Wow, that seems short to me.
Look at Spider-Man. The gaps were so small in that between the different, reboots and franchises. So I think it's okay. I think that, any more than that, then I don't know, like 10 years is a lot. But I mean, I guess if, you have the story, I suppose it's okay.
Yeah, and making clear distinction from like a reboot and we're choosing to continue on a franchise like The Matrix.
Yeah, I almost always like prefer the continue on until you said The Matrix. But
I was gonna say, wait a second.
In some cases, I got invested in the previous iterations and I wanted to see more of it. And then for them to just blow it off, it just seems... it seems like something went wrong and they're like, let's just start over. It'll be easier to do that than to pay the actor or whatever.
Okay, so this is 20 years. Do you anyone know what was happening during this time? Or is it just that, again, we've watched 3 of these films already and we grew up with those original ones, and this is definitely past my period of Ninja Turtle watching. And I think it's very clear after watching this film that this was made for, I'm going to say, the youth. Is that a good way of putting it?
Oh man, he's on his porch already.
It is true that this film was made directly for me. I appreciated that.
Well, okay, I'll answer the reason I was being selfish is because I just want to know, when is it going to be okay to remake The Lord of the Rings again? But let's not talk about that. This is 20 years later.
27 hour cut.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely seemed like it's geared towards teens in a way that I guess is odd. It opens and it's being very epic. We get the cartoon intro and it's like trying to set everything up for us. And there's a lot of people action happening. And really, I'm looking at some of my first notes here. It's like when we get our first glimpse at the Turtles, knowing that the first 3 films were live action, this is technically live action in a way, but there were people in costumes in those first 3 films, and this is 100% CG. So, like the first glimpse we get of the turtle in the real world in real New York, I was cringing because I was concerned with just the way the CGI looked based on the lighting. But I will tell you, and y'all can tell me if I'm crazy, it turned on me at points where I kind of started absorbing how they processed the CG and made the turtles look, and gave into all the shenanigans, and only really felt like the points where they were on snow that it looked extra artificial. But there were certain times with the way they had the lighting, I was like, okay, I get it. I feel like they're in the space.
But it never felt real though. I mean,
no,
at least not to me. I mean, and I get it. They're giant turtles, whatever. But if I compare this to some other stuff or whatever, like I never got the sense of realism that I think that, I don't know if I was expecting, but like, and I get it, it's organic too. Cause I was about to say like Transformers, right? So clearly this is connected to Michael Bay. I feel like this was basically made because Transformers was starting to wane at this point. Cause I think this was a few years after Dark of the Moon came out. So like,
wait, aren't they still making Transformers?
They are still making
another one coming out. Yeah,
they won't. Well, people keep watching it, I guess. But like, I feel like if I
like myself,
if I compare the visual effects from that, like, yeah, most of the time I couldn't tell what was going on in Transformers, but the visual effects for the most part held up decently. But I guess they are machines, so it's a little bit easier to get away with it. But like this, I mean, I don't know. It never really hit that level of realism, but maybe they were afraid of that, so they kind of kept it. And they
Cartoony?
cartoony, uncanny valley, all that. Like,
I just had like a little bit of an issue with the way they looked. Like for some reason they didn't look quite right to me. Like their noses were weird. Like they had like their nostrils like and I mean like, yeah, it's a turtle, so there's like it just like
Yeah, go on.
it just like they just didn't look right to me for some reason. Like,
Well,
and I know
you're just saying you didn't like the art style, right?
yeah,
that they
like
chose.
yeah, I just thought they looked strange. I mean, you know, and I think their rendering in some cases seemed fine, but like they clearly like designed them to look like, you know, like human hybrid kind of like situations, and I just didn't
Well, I
really
thought they
like.
looked like the Hulk was my initial reaction when the size was presented and how they seem really big, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
they look kind of remind me of the Abomination from the Incredible Hulk movie.
Oh right.
Like, or kind of like in more recent ones, like not Darkseid, but what's his name? Crap, I can't remember his name all of a sudden. From the Lord of the Rings. Oh, shit.
It's okay.
But yeah, like it.
We don't have the best memory. It's all good.
It just had. I mean, to me, it was the nose and the eyes. That's what threw me off the
Mhm.
most. Where like they gave them these huge human-like eyes, and like they had.
Do you mean
eyes
the
in the original.
orcs or something, or not the like the cave troll things?
Yeah, the cave trolls. Yeah. I don't know. They just didn't look quite right. And then, like, you're right. They were huge and hulking in this one. They made them over 6 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I never really got into it. And then they gave them all weird outfits compared to the original
Well, they're
design.
trying to make them unique.
Yeah, they had
Right?
like extra stuff
for
on
their
them. Like,
character.
they had like writing and stuff like that
Yeah.
going on, and one of them had like a hat situation, like a whole head like eye strap thing. I don't know what they're called.
Look here, we're all just shaking our fists at the youths at this point. They represented clearly an age group that I think, you know, having grown up with the Turtles, we knew it as. This is a very different way of looking at these characters and what they're supposed to be. I think we talked about sort of the ramped up personalities. I feel like obviously Raphael was still just Raphael, but they took Donatello and made him super nerd, super geek to try and really overemphasize that he was the intelligent one of the group.
Yeah, I didn't like his whole like head thing that he was wearing all the time, that kind of like fisheye lensed his eyes. And
Wait, his glasses? He had poor eyesight, my dude.
Do turtles have problems with eyesight? Or?
yeah. He's a mutant turtle and he has
I
to
know.
wear glasses.
Did they have like superhuman healing abilities or something? Like that was the whole reason why they were created, is so they could produce and like he's nearsighted or whatever.
Okay, let people with bad eyesight be represented in turtle form. Come on.
I wear glasses. I'm all for like but like
that guy needs turtle LASIK.
Well, like here's the thing, right? Is like, you know, my wife, she like loves Donatello. She's always been a huge Donatello fan or whatever.
Yeah.
But like sometimes it feels a little bit much. Like the whole Splinter learning martial arts from the book or whatever. Like part of me is like, were they next to like a Walden Books or something like that, like Borders, and they're dumping books down, and like that's how Donatello learned how to code? Like there was just like a code book down there too.
I know we have questions on how their intelligence came to be.
I have so many questions.
Clearly this wait, they didn't call it ooze. What did they call it?
Is mutagen or whatever?
Yeah, the mutagen. Thank you.
Yeah, and it was alien mutagen.
Wait, well, I guess I missed that completely.
Was it not?
No, it wasn't. That kind of ties into something else that was kind of like a pre-production. Like originally the turtles were supposed to be aliens in the original version of this.
Okay, maybe I'm
They made a
Well,
joke
actually,
about being aliens.
This is a good segue into, I guess, the thing that I think might be the most maddening, since you were aware of this, which I was not. So I was definitely trying to take everything in stride with what was being presented to me. But looks like this movie was full of reshoots, is what you told me, and they didn't. This did not go as planned, apparently.
Well, this is where like the rumor mill kind of plays into it, and there was levels of denial. I know who's the one who played Eric Sachs, Fichtner.
Yeah.
He had made a comment that his character was Eric Sachs was supposed to be Shredder in the original, and supposedly originally the turtles were supposed to be aliens, kind of like Transformers, to kind of explain why there were these talking turtles opposed to it being just like a mutation, whatever, which is really dumb because it's literally part of their name that they're supposed to be mutants. So it's kind of dumb to kind of go down that route. But supposedly that was kind of the original take on it, whether or not that's what they were actually shooting with or not. But like it got leaked and people kind of heard about it. And there was a big uproar in the community.
Of course, yeah.
Saying like, one, Shredder shouldn't be just some, white billionaire dude or whatever. And the turtles shouldn't be aliens. That makes no sense. They're supposed to be mutants. And the rumor was that they went back and retooled it part of the way through. And there are some shots in some parts of the movie where it feels like they were definitely reshoot shots that were inserts, or they would throw, because like when you really watch the movie, Shredder's there, but he doesn't have the same level of involvement that you'd really think. It feels like there were two different characters that were originally one character and they split them. And it feels that way as you watch this movie, especially like watching this again. It becomes a lot more apparent to me after hearing all those rumors about everything went down. And there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes drama and everything about this entire movie and all that kind of stuff with the things changing. And yeah. So
when you're just trying to make a turtle film, I mean, Bobby, would you want a billionaire Shredder?
I'm kind of...
Did he find a book too?
Yeah. I really like the original like cartoon type. So I like the sparkly red pants from the original stuff. I mean, even like, I think there was just kind of like how Transformers like kind of has like some criticisms too. Like there's just too much crap. Like Shredder had like 35 blades on each hand, and like,
I mean, he's a Shredder.
I mean, it was a little bit much for me. But it was funny how like someone like referred to him as a robot because he was like had so much metal on him. They thought that he looked like a robot, I guess.
But like, well, I mean, we didn't even see the actor playing the character that often. It was once the suit happened, it was suit all the time. Well, so it was a robot.
And that's the thing, right? Is the fact that you never saw, and I think that's one of the biggest indicators that there definitely were reshoots, is you never saw Shredder in the armor and Eric Sachs in the same scene. Like they were never in the same shots together. There was only that one shot of Shredder out of armor and Sachs talking. And then that's the only time you ever see Shredder, except for I think there's one scene where he talked to, what was her name? Karai? He talked to her, and that was it. That was the last time you ever saw him in human form. It was always the armor after that.
Yeah, back to the CG. I mean, that's where the moments where I kind of accepted the way it looked and the turtles themselves. Anytime Shredder was involved, it definitely stripped all of that because it looked off in every which way in terms of, I guess, their approach to the metal and how it worked. And at the end of the day, knowing that this was supposed to be someone in a suit in theory, and you could never buy into that, which does make me ask, like, is this something that we would look at from a Ninja Turtle perspective? Are there certain properties that really should always maybe just be in cartoon form? Or do you think there's a way that Turtles could be redone again like it was in the 90s and people actually be in costumes that look legit?
It seems like some anime stuff really should stay in cartoon form.
Well, anime for sure. I mean that's the hard part, right? Is something like this. It's funny because we're going back and we're watching these movies. There's been, I mean, this obviously is one of the newer ones. I watched it in theaters and I never watched it again, but it's less than 10 years ago. Whereas the original one was what, like 89, 90 or whatever, 91 maybe. So significantly more time since that one came out. And I remember thinking as we were watching these, like, oh, the suits actually hold up better than I remember. Like, yeah, I see the seams. I see the scary random mouth inside the mouth or whatever. Like, but it still held up pretty well. And then watching this, I'm like, I don't think the CG really does justice to it. But having seen, what was it, in 2007, they did the CG animated movie. And then obviously tons of TV shows have been coming out.
Yeah.
In 3D animation form, 2D animation form. There's a new movie coming out, which is kind of like a Spider-Verse style animation. So it's got like the CG, but it's still got kind of like hand-drawn feel to it. I feel like this one falls in the category, to answer your question, that I feel like Turtles should stay in the animated realm. I don't need to see another live action one of these, I don't think.
Are there studios right now that are even producing kind of really good live action puppetry and or costumes like we used to see that focus? Because there was a point before CG, right, where everything had to be practical. Is anyone making that effort?
Well, didn't they they recently I don't know if it was a reboot or a continuation of the Labyrinth stuff, and I saw a bunch of stuff about how they tried to do it as close to the original as they could, but they added CG augmentation to the puppets.
So CG for flair. I support that.
Or just to hide things like the seams or whatever that you would have seen in the original ones, to hide that kind of stuff, the things that you need to be there just practically. And then you kind of use digital erasure, right, to get rid of zippers and, tubes, because they're feeding AC stuff into the suits so they don't pass out. It's funny because I think the reverse is kind of true for me, because I think that a good example of a movie that's live action but has a CG character, Battle Angel Alita, was really good. Now, there was an uncanny valley aspect to it, but that was kind of an intentional thing that they did. But it never bothered me. Like, I was a fan of the manga. I was a fan of the anime that came out. And when I watched it, I was like, this actually kind of works. But watching this, it didn't work on that same level, I think.
Okay, so I guess I could flip it. How much of that, Bobby, is Will Arnett? Is Megan Fox? How much of it is the rest of the cast? We've been so focused on the Turtles, and I think we've shared how we feel about them. We're watching a story here that we may not feel is super cohesive, but how do we feel, the rest of the cast did?
I think they were fine. I mean, they were, I think it was more to the pedigree of Will Arnett. I think if you got a different, it's debatable whether they should have had them there to begin with at all. But I think that Will Arnett kind of he is who he is. So he kind of led, I don't want to say gravitas. Maybe that's giving it a little bit too much credit, but he was there. And I thought that Megan Fox did a decent job. I thought she was good.
I think that's the best description. He was there.
He was there. He had a presence. It was this particular line, and this is pretty early on, that immediately made me uncomfortable. She's so hot, I can feel my shell tightening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
why did they make Michelangelo so horny?
Yeah, it's kind of
April?
like an ongoing gag, at least in the movies. I don't know if it's in the cartoons, that at least Michelangelo, if not all of the Turtles, have a crush on April O'Neil.
I get that.
And it
this
seems
was really horny.
It seems like in this, though, they were what didn't they say? Oh, I talked to a girl. So it's this is the first interaction they've had with any female of any type. And so
it is the youths. Yes, you're getting back to, I'm supposed to remember that they are young teenage boys.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of it. And it's lost in this one much more so than I think in the original trilogy. That they are that's even watching the cartoons or whatever, you don't necessarily get the feeling that they're teenagers as much. As of right now, the new movie hasn't come out, but watching the trailer, I was they actually gave, they got kids to voice them. And so they actually come off as kids, and they gave them very kind of, but this one, these are 6 foot tall, hulking 12-year-olds, I guess.
Right. And the Raphael dude was pretty jacked, and he was I'm going to threaten you in a van right now.
They wouldn't get carded, right? They could definitely go get the beer for the team, right?
They 100% could. Actually, I want to see the Turtles drinking beer.
Oh no.
Yeah, where's our the turtles are now in their late 20s, early 30s. What are they doing?
Have you not seen that? I can't remember who did it. Somebody did like middle-aged teenage like Ninja Turtles, where like
I need to watch.
You need to watch it. It is so hilarious, and they even have a theme song where they take the original one and anyways. If you want to see that,
Indiana Jones and My Back Hurts or whatever, are they like?
No, they're in like debt and divorced and stuff like that.
Oh no!
Wait, that would imply that they had wives.
Yes,
who were not turtles.
Yes.
Oh boy!
No. Howard the Duck.
That's exactly what it is. I will appreciate Will Arnett. Look, I don't even remember his character's name. Listening to Careless Whisper.
Was it Vernon or something?
I don't know. This is me not caring, sadly. Listening to Careless Whisper, he also really, really wanted to get in April O'Neil's pants, and they made no bones about that. I know we talked about how Transformers with Megan Fox made it very, very clear that we should be staring at Megan Fox. They did that here too, and it just felt uncomfortable.
I'm so glad you corrected yourself from the joked, because we did not joke about it. We just pointed out the fact that
yes,
they clearly put Megan Fox in this as a sex object or whatever for the most part, and it felt uncomfortable in Transformers, and it felt super uncomfortable in this. It wasn't as bad in this, to be fair. It wasn't as bad, but Will Arnett's character, Vern, was incredibly creepy, and yeah, it got a little bit not great, especially considering, what was behind the scenes. Like, she had got fired from Transformers because of her beef with Michael Bay, so it felt even weirder that kind of stuff was still in this. But at least, from what I remember, we haven't watched it yet, but in the sequel, there's some schoolgirl shots of her.
Oh, right.
So it doesn't get any better, unfortunately.
Great. All right, I'm going to flip to advertising. Did you like that segue?
Yes.
I'm like, where is this going?
Microsoft paid a lot of money.
A lot of money. I'm surprised.
Skype?
Was Zune still around? I'm surprised Zune wasn't in this.
Yeah, their phones were in it. We got Pizza Hut. We got Fila in the most odd place I think I've ever seen, in the middle of the epic fight scene kick. I think it was Michelangelo's foot about to crush on Shredder's face, and the Fila's there, but the minute the foot lifts off, the Fila is gone. Did they pay for that millisecond?
They paid for 3 total seconds of time.
Was that Victoria's Secret thing at the end an homage to Michael Bay's career, I guess?
You know more about his career than I do, apparently.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what?
He started off doing
music videos and stuff, and
and commercials. For Victoria's Secret.
I think it was just a chance for them to have the turtles hanging off 2 bra cups and
and then looking at each other like, hey, we're grabbing boobs, we know what we're doing here.
That's exactly what it was. They also seem that they have a very big Marvel issue, and I'm sure they were actually more violent. They definitely killed a lot of people. But there was a lot of citizen casualties as well. There was just a lot going on. I felt like people were dying all over the place.
I mean, it's just like Transformers, right? There's that idea that, there's Mayhem going on. Michael Bay didn't direct this, but you can feel the Mayhem in it. And
with the way the shots are and the lens flares and the
shots, the chaos, it doesn't want you to sit there and think about, the fact that woman definitely got crushed, or that foot soldier definitely got his spine snapped in half. And was at one point Leonardo threw a speeding train or whatever, subway train. Not only is he
probably the best
but there's probably people in the train that got hit too.
Yes. That was probably one of the more violent parts. There was a lot of violence, but that one in particular stands out because you're going, oh yeah, that's got to hurt a lot. This is just one of those movies that I'm scared that we have to watch another one. And we shouldn't have to feel this way.
I mean, are you surprised they made another one after watching this? Because let's be clear here. I've seen this movie. Austin, you have not seen this movie before.
No, this is my first time.
And Bobby, it may or may not be.
Yeah, I watched it, and I could tell you, Austin's in the minority. I think this was the highest grossing movie out of all of them, inflation included.
Even though
I think this movie did well.
Just not reviewed very well.
Yeah.
So, like, we're sitting here watching this now, not in a theater eating popcorn in the middle of summer with our friends or whatever, you know, and we're not 12. So we're sitting here thinking it's shocking that they made another one. But at the time, it was good financial sense, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think the next one did nearly as well as this one financially.
Well, here's me hoping the new one coming out is going to blow it out of the water money-wise, so we do not pretend that this is somehow valuable because it made more money. Come on.
They're still making Transformer movies, so
I'm just trying to say that people watched it.
Including you.
I don't know if they liked it, but they watched it.
Could you imagine if you could get a refund for bad movies? Then those ticket numbers wouldn't be there.
Like everyone's required, all citizens are required to give a review.
Yes.
That reminds me of a story I heard about some actor where like the guy came up and said, "Hey, watch your movie." And then the actor like pulled a couple bucks out of his pocket and gave it to him and said, "Sorry about that. Here's your refund."
Was it The Room?
No, it can't be.
Well, I would like my money back. So let's run through our ratings. Let's see if you want to actually recommend this film for people to watch. I do want you to take into consideration maybe you have some teenagers at home, and would you take them to watch this in today's day and age, or are you passing on this? Bobby, give us your recommendation.
I do not have a teenager at home. Maybe thankfully.
Would your hypothetical teenager watch this?
My hypothetical teenager. I mean, if you don't really think about anything, you know, it's fun. I mean, it's the Turtles. I'd rather see Turtles than some other stuff, you know, like a lot of other movies. So even though they looked weird and they were kind of turtly, maybe like
I like how he dodged what the other movies were.
Yes, he totally did. I was waiting for a list.
He's like, I'm about to get people with pitchforks if I say the wrong thing.
I just totally got a half-hearted yes out of Bobby. Matt, are you recommending the reboot, the 2014 reboot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not Alien Turtles?
I don't really see how I could. I couldn't recommend this movie as is. I don't think I could recommend it if I had like a teenager or whatever to go watch or whatever. Like I can't imagine this thing keeping their attention long enough.
No, in this day and age with iPads and phones, you're absolutely right.
No.
We say this when it was only 2014. Yes, the ability to pay attention is hard. I'm agreeing here with you, Matt. This is a tough one and a hard sell for me. Definitely concerned for what's in my future, but I'll look forward to what's happening in the theaters because at least I know that's animated in a way that's probably a lot better than what we've experienced here. With that said, as always, thank you for listening, and remember, knock knock, you about to get shell shocked.